later. I want to introduce myself. My name is Tricia Duffin. I am the Director of Customer Success here at Gavel. We are working on this project to try to bring in more of our backgrounds in legal tech and try to share our experiences to help you guys get better acclimated to just using legal tech within your platforms and within your firms. So I started as a legal secretary and worked with family law firms here in St. Louis. And in the process of working that with the different attorneys I worked with, I came across Documate and a lot of other platforms. At that time, Gavel was called Documate, and we gained pretty close with the CEO here, Dorna, and it has built a relationship where I was then a Gavel expert and helped other people build their platforms. I had my own business as a software integrator. I worked with other platforms such as Clio, Today, Asana, or Clio Monday, Asana, After Pattern, and I did some work with Woodpecker as well to help build other people's platforms and help connect them to just different software and document automation in particular. That's led me to being a full-time during COVID, working with different attorneys. It was just kind of the kind of weird timing that set up that allowed me to build my own little business. Through there, I became really enamored with what was happening in Gavel. It seemed like they were always constantly innovating and looking for new ways to really make the process easier and more streamlined for users. It felt very easy for me to build on, but also teach others how to use. And I think that's one of the key features here that we ask a lot of our attorneys to know everything about marketing and communications and all of these things when you went to law school to be a lawyer. So anything we can do to help make these tools easier to use and more functional for you is our goal. So here we have, I'm going to kind of go over our agenda today. We are going to kind of do a previously on. These are going to be talking about things that we covered in the last two sessions. If you missed the last two sessions, that is okay. You are able to connect back to these. This is going to be shared on a recording as well, so that you will then be able to, revisit step one, step two, and this beautiful step three that we are at right now. We are then going to go into building the road. I'm going to be doing a high level demo of Gavel. What this is going to do is just show you how Gavel works as well, so you get an idea of everything to create within Gavel. Then we're going to talk about integrations and what that means for other integrations that you would like to connect if you happen to use Gavel. And then part three is going to be about testing and reroutes. We're going to talk about troubleshooting techniques, and then we're also going to talk about what to do when you come across something that needs to be fixed. Each of those will also have a 5-minute Q&A afterwards, so we'll be able to discuss everything that you need there too. All right. I also wanted to show here on our previously on identifying your document automation goals. So this is the session one that we did a couple months ago. The first thing I talked about is gathering information. We wanted to know exactly how your clients are utilizing your firm today and what are the processes that you have from the first touch when they first contact you all the way through to when the case is closed. So we talked about making that kind of roadmap that you have today. We also talked about preparing templates. This is going to be a key precursor to what we're going to do today. So we created blueprints. We talked about looking at your templates, making master templates, looking at them to see what kind of conditions could we make. Does it apply if they have children or if they don't have children, things like that. And then making it clear on your templates so that you can quickly adapt them. Then we talked about paving the road ahead. What is the ideal path forward? We talked about just how you would like your clients to interact with your team, who interacts with you, who interacts with the client and your team and you into that cycle, and then figuring out what that like ideal path is, what your dream path is. On the second session, we talked about preparing your automation for maximum output. And then we talked about mile markers. So these are points within your ideal path that you are like, okay, these are pivot points. This is when a customer finishes an intake. This is when one of my paralegals finishes the first draft. And these are what we would call mile markers or pivot points that we want to kind of streamline those systems and automate them. These are going to be our action sequences. Then we talked about building your unicorn and how legal tech stacks, don't really exist. That unicorn is a myth, and how we have to build our own using tools that are the best for what we need them to do that moment, that day. And then last, we talked about how to get people on board and like how you need to build a team. Your team needs to be behind you. Their impact of with your staff and your team members are important, but it's also adding new people to your team, finding experts and creating these automations, and then go ahead and relying on them to help get you where you need to get there quicker. So those are the two different sessions that we had before. Now we're going to move on to this session, and I want to start with talking about building the road. Let's get to Gavel automation. So the first step we're going to talk about today is just doing a Gavel demo. We already have our prepared templates. This was done in part one of our first session, creating the blueprint. You should have an idea of what templates you want to automate. There should be some type of variable definitions that you understand that sets up the different variables or sets up the different conditions that you're looking to input. And we will now use Gavel to show you how you can actually take that template and then be able to create a workflow in Gavel to automate the templates and to output documents, which is always the goal, right? That's where we want to end up, is to have output documents as clean and as beautiful as we can here. All right, give me a second. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change my share to another screen. Oh, excuse me. All right. All right, so I believe you're now seeing my full screen here to the left. Please let me know if you're not, or say something in the chat so we can have an idea of what you're seeing here. All right, so this is my Gavel dashboard. So Gavel is a document automation tool for those who aren't aware of who we are. What we do is we allow you to take your already IP, your specific templates, and then we create an automation tool using information that we gather either from clients or from your internal team. So it really is a choose your own adventure kind of playland on how you want to build with Gavel. I'm using the example that I used in the first session, where we had the this different privacy policy that had a basic signature block at the end. And what I've done is I've highlighted in a style that I tended to use in the past when I was a builder, where I would highlight in a pink to kind of really pop out the different areas that I wanted to automate or to fill in with different information. Now, you can use different tools in different ways. Some people do prefer to have this as John Doe or things like that, where they just recognize, okay, that is the the different platform or the different variable I want to input there. What's important here is to know your template well enough that you are understanding of what information needs to be gathered, and then what type of things you're going to need to make conditional. I then will start with creating a new workflow. Now you have a couple options with Gavel. I could utilize this template with my Gavel blueprint, but I want to go ahead and show you with questions. And I am going to be using our legacy builder. We are now currently in flux to change to Builder 2.0, which we will have different demos of that in the future. But right now we're going to do the legacy builder that I'm going to show you here, so that you can see it in action with this specific document. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new workflow. And what this is going to create a set of questions that we will then input into that template. Unlike other platforms, we do start with questions. It's important to, kind of create the variable and create the different question types in order to put into the document. So I'm going to start here with a new page, and I'm going to talk about company information. The reason I'm starting with company information is I know that that's something I need to gather here, right? We need to have the company, we need to know the website URL, we need to know where they're located because we have a difference if they're in California or if they're in the EU. We also need to get information about who their representative is, like who is going to be signing this agreement, policy agreement, and then what their address, telephone, and email are. These are basic information that we're gathering here. Now, we'll talk about integrations in a second, and you can integrate to have this information already filled out somewhere else that gets populated into Gavel. But we're going to go ahead and start here with, creating these questions to create this document. All right. We have a lot of options here. That's going to be my reiteration over and over with Gavel. There are a lot of options, and a lot of ways to get there. So we have the different types of questions. You'll find a lot of these are similar to what you would have in a Google form or a Jot form with some outliers that I want to highlight here. We do have an option for file upload. So if you wanted to be able to upload a different document or upload a previous agreement or, have an image uploaded, you can actually upload those here to attach into your documents or add as attachments to an email that you send post document generation. We also have a repeating item. These are loops of questions. Example I use a lot is children, just because it's, kind of self-explanatory, the idea that you could have one child, you could have 10 children. What it does is ask a specific set of questions over and over again so that you can reuse that data in your documents and put them as tables, or you can even generate a specific document for each iteration. In that example, I would think of like maybe a deed, a warranty deed that you might need to create multiple for each property. So we might ask a set of questions about all the properties someone owns so that we can generate a warranty deed for each of the properties that we need to. We do have a signature block here. This is an internal signature block. We also do integrate with DocuSign, which I will get into later. We have things like instruction blocks. These are going to be very important for building out headers, or if you wanted to embed a video into the workflow and the questionnaire. If you want to give help text details outside of just our regular help text. An instruction block also gives you options to do a lot of fun formatting, things like that to really, customize the look and feel of the workflow that you are giving either to a client or your internal team. We do connect with Clio and with Stripe. I'm going to talk about that with integrations in the next section. But I also want to point out our CSV data source. If you have a static table of data that you want to reuse, you can use this as well. A good example of this is the attorneys in a firm. So if you have a larger firm and you have a number of attorneys in your firm, you could create a CSV table of all the attorneys associated with your firm, have their bar number, their email address, their phone number, all of that information could be located in a CSV table. It will then be a drop down where I could select who's the attorney on this case, and without having to re-input all the information for that attorney, it would go ahead and pull that full row of that CSV so you could input that in a signature block. So these are ways that you can reuse data that you already have without having to input it in each workflow. We also have an advanced feature called Invisible Logic. These are going to allow you to create new variables, create some custom logic as well. So I'm going to start with this example. We have here, I need to get the company name and the company information. So I'm going to go ahead and push text here. And I'm going to go ahead and select company name. I'm going to go ahead and put in the title, company name. This is important here. I need to make a variable that is going to be unique to this answer. That's going to be what I input into the template. So when I save this, I have this saved here. I have different setting options. I can create a little question mark next to it to be like, What am I asking for? We can set default values. So if you have a list of states, but you mostly work in Nevada, then maybe you just want to make a default value Nevada, things like that. We also need some information about the company rep. So I'm going to go ahead and add another company rep name here. And then I'm going to call this rep name. And as we're going to go through here, I'm just going to go ahead and start adding some of the questions I know I need to ask here, like the company address, telephone, and the email. And so with that, you have options. One of the things to think about is that you can always merge, but you can't split as easily. So if I wanted to split this into be, give me the street address, city, county, state, zip code, separate, you can do that and then use invisible logic later to create full address, which would be all of that information as one block. But in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and ask for the company full address. Okay. Try to keep my formatting the same here. I'm going to go ahead and save this here so you have an example of this. Now, with this, you also have some other options here. I've created those 3 questions, but I can duplicate this whole page, which is going to be very handy because the other thing I need to get is information about this other company, the software company and their rep and their address, etc. So if I go ahead and duplicate this page, now I've already set it up. All the questions are here, but I just need to do some cleaning up to make sure it matches what I need here. So let's go ahead and talk about the software company that we are representing as well. There. Okay. So now I have these 2 sets of questions. I know one of the things I want to connect as well is this EU question. Is it in the EU? Is it in California? Where is it at? That will depend on how they need to be represented in this privacy agreement. So I'm going to create a new page here, and we're going to talk about location of company. And I can now set a different type of question. Now you have a lot of options. It could be a drop down. It could be a multi-select, a single select. You could have this be a yes, no questions, be like, is this in California? Yes or no? Is this in the EU? Yes or no? For this, I'm going to go ahead and do a drop down and I'm going to ask the first question. Is this based in the United States or in the EU? Country. Okay. And so I will say United States or the EU. Okay. I also can set up another question here that if they answer United States, is it in California? And this one I'm going to go ahead and do a yes, no. Now here I have a logic option. So this allows me to only show this question if country, company is United States. So now I have a set of questions on this page, which will help me output which one I need to output here. I'm gonna go ahead and save this here, and we're gonna run it real quick so you can see in real time what this looks like to the taker. So if I go ahead and put this company name as Tricia Big Company, and then my rep name is Tricia Duffin, and my full address is on Main Street. All right, now I'm going to be asked about the software company. We'll just go ahead and make it Gavel, and then we'll go ahead and put Caitlin, and then we'll put this at 14321 Main Street, just down the block. Okay. Now I can locate the company. If I pick United States, you'll see this will pop up here. If I pick the EU, it won't ask me any other follow-up questions. But I go ahead and say, yes, this is in California. I continue. I get a review page to edit my questions. Once I hit continue, it will take me to my documents, but I haven't added the documents yet. So what I like to do is kind of just test the run and the feel of it, make sure that I'm asking the questions the correct way. Then I'll go back to where I'm building and I'm going to go to document templates. And this is where you're going to add the template to the workflow. So I'm going to go ahead and upload my privacy document here and attach it. As it's a Word document, I have options here. If I click under details, I can see if I want to generate it as just a Word doc, a PDF, or both. I can also generate multiple for a repeating item, like we talked about. I don't have a repeating item in here, so I can't. But like we talked about with the warranty deed for the different properties. What's also important is you can attach as many documents as you need to here. I could attach 20 documents back here and then use logic to only output certain documents based off of questions that are answered. So if I wanted to create a whole different document, one for California and one for the EU, I could do it that way. Or I could use the conditional logic that's in the template. I also have sharing options, meaning I can share this with other, people. I can send it to different email addresses. I could also have it not display. So if you were doing a client intake and you didn't want them to know that they're filling out the majority of the information you need for your documents, you can actually set it so they don't see that. Maybe they get a Calendly invite or something like that instead. We'll talk about DocuSign later. So again, you have as many templates as you'd like to attach. We don't just work with Word, we also work with PDFs. You can attach PDFs and then tag them directly on this builder site. However, if you are working with a Word document, we're going to go ahead and save this here. We can go to the Word, open it up on your Microsoft Word account, and then you're going to use a Word add-in. You can select just from add-ins, search for Gavel, and you will find our document tagger here. It will log you in based off an API key, and there's information on how to do that as well. This is connected to my account, and you'll see I have that privacy policy example that we just built together here. I'm going to select that workflow, and now I have all the variables that I've created available for me to input into the template. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the company name here. And we're going to go ahead and grab this and highlight. Now I'm going to select for the company name and say I want that all to be uppercase. I have that option here. Once I click insert variable, it's going to replace that with the variable that I need here. Things to keep in mind, and this is just little tips of the trade. If you have this open and on to show the different characters, you can figure out spacing. It does help you make sure that you have the correct spacing between your variables as well, especially if you are grabbing and inserting. We also have the company name down here. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this as well and then insert that there. Anything else that you would like, you have other formatting options. If I wanted to make this bold, I can highlight everything in that block, make it bold. As long as those two brackets are also bold, then it will output as bold when you're ready. So any of the font sizes, colors, changes that you have in your Word document will output into the output document. I'm going to go ahead and move on with the software company name here. And we're going to go ahead and insert that as uppercase. All right, we did not make questions for those, so I'm going to go ahead and move forward here, and we're going to go down to the software company down here. You can also use something you can also use the find and replace tool on your Word document. These variables you can see the syntax, you see it as the variable to output. So you could find and replace anywhere you have company name, it would find and replace them all with this as well. We can put in the company rep and then the company address. All right. Now I'm going to show you about sorry, I'm trying to do two things at once and my brain is telling me no. Okay. Let me go ahead and finish this part and then we'll go on to the next one here. Okay. So now we're going to talk about the conditional logic around these different sections. So we have two different types of conditional logic set up. We have show phrase and show paragraph. The differences are show phrase is when you want to do something within a paragraph. So if you wanted to, make things for inside of it, if I only wanted this to be if it's with the EU general data protection, and that was an if or, I could actually make that phrase show up or not within a paragraph. Showing paragraph means that you can show the full paragraph. Now, don't limit yourself to thinking just paragraphs either. We do work with outlines and it will auto update those dependent on what you answer. You also have options on pages, sets of documents, all of that as well. So you have a lot of options on how you want to, utilize these conditions, and you can use conditions within conditions within conditions. So you have a lot of options. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab this one first, and I'm going to show this paragraph only if that California yes, no is yes. Now you also have multiple conditions you can add here as well. So we can say that, add that there. And what this does is it inserts the condition around there. You can see the syntax is here. This will disappear and this number value will update dependent on what is answered. I'm going to go ahead and delete this because now I know that I have that set up. And then I'm going to do the same thing, but now we're going to look at the EU question. And so we're going to talk about country company is EU. Insert condition and the same idea. And I'm going to go ahead and delete this here. Okay, so now we have a document that's been updated. I can also replace this right here, update in Gavel, and now this document has been updated here. So I can go ahead and run this again. And what I'm going to do is show you one of my tips that I'm going to go over later. I'm going to insert some dummy data and just in here to the sake of time. I'm going to say it's based in the EU. And then I'm going to press continue and I will get the output document here. You'll see different options, because I have it set up, I can open it either way. I'm going to go ahead and open it as the doc version. So you can see here, it's inputted that EU. It has that number 1 because it has replaced the California number 1 because we've updated that different outline. We'll also see down at the big dot box of here of our template, we have the different, and this is the dummy data that I inputted, so it's not going to be the real address here, but you'll see that those have been capitalized, these are capitalized, etc. So this is how you would automate your documents using Gavel. We are able to do this within 15 minutes with a very small document. You do have a lot of options as well on how to do this. You can use our AI tool. We do have a lot of information here, so I want to make sure that you briefly understand once you have that roadmap set up, you have all these things, it's going to make it so much easier for you to output all of these templates how you'd like through Gavel. So I'm going to go ahead and share back to our main page here. And let's go ahead and have any Q&A questions. Okay, take a peek at the chat here and then see if Caitlin, if there's anything that you want to call out as well.
Thanks, Tricia. We do have a question in the chat here about differences and similarities between Gavel and Clio Draft.
Yes. So Clio Draft is a tool that has just been adopted within Clio. It does have a lot of the similar aspects. Some of the main things I will call out is robust conditional logic, client-facing attributes. So if you wanted something that's a little bit more easier for your clients to fill out themselves. We are also able to do a lot more calculations. We have date calculations and numerical calculations that they don't have as robust as we do. The other thing is our PDF capabilities are much greater with conditions inside of PDFs and things like that. So if PDFs are an important part of your practice, we definitely have a leg up there as well. However, we do have the same kind of utilization. We were known as Clio's #1 integration tool for many, many years until they purchased and adapted it to Clio Draft. And we still integrate with them natively.
Right. Another question from the chat here. Is there a way to save your answers in the questionnaire for testing purposes so that you can avoid re-entering answers in the same questionnaire as you test?
Yes. So we're going to go into the testing and troubleshooting in a little bit. So as a little sneak peek to that, you have options. You have a data manager system within Gavel that allows you to reuse data over and over again. So you can actually push that data through. The other thing is I would showcase is the using dummy data so that you're just kind of, pushing some values through. Um, the save answers in the questionnaire for testing purposes. Um, Okay, yes. Let me go ahead and see. I'm going to go ahead and share really quick. I don't want to deviate too much, but it seems like we have the question here for that. So I'm going to go ahead and grab over here. All right, so their data manager is one of your options. We do allow you to collect your data. You can see here that I have my testing here that I did first, and the one I put there. This one doesn't have a document because if you remember the template wasn't attached yet. But I can actually reopen this. And when I reopen it, it takes me to that last page. I click that back button. If I make any edits or changes to that template, say I add another name or add another variable to it and I upload it, and then I update it in Gavel. Once I'm here, I push that continue button. It's almost creating another session. So then it will just retake all of that data and do with your updates that you have. It's a great tool. Now, I will say going back like this and doing it, I give it like 4 or 5 times before you're going to be, reusing the data too often from here. The other way is to select that session and then go ahead and push it right back through that same workflow. What it's going to do is answer everything again and get you to this review page. So you have a couple options. And, if you have any questions about this in the future, you're also welcome to reach out to help at Gavel. We have tons of tips and tricks that we can show you along the way. All right. Anything else before we keep going? Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about integration stations. So these are going back to what we've covered in part 2 of our workshop series here. And we're going to talk about mile markers, those pivot points, and then how they interact with each other. If you remember from that, you can also review it as well. What we are trying to define is how our different platforms communicate with each other. We talked about the myth of the unicorn. We want to believe that there is this all-encompassing product that can do everything. And there are products out there that can do everything, but can they do it well is questionable. We are at Gavel a document automation first, but we also have a lot of, as you saw, we retain data information. You can reuse data. We will show you, we also have like paywall options and things like that that we highlight on, but we are not currently a client management system. And we understand that. We play well with others in order to give you guys a complete sense of a legal tech stack that you can build while utilizing Gavel. And that's what I'm going to talk about with integrations. So we need to build out these stations to make those connections work. So if we have something like Clio and you have Clio card or Clio contact cards and a Clio matter, how clean those Clio information is going to be what you're going to gather into Gavel. You can also use things like Zapier to push data around if you're not using Clio, if you use Lawmatics, or if you use another platform like Practice Panther, there are ways to connect as well. We do have some native integrations. Like I mentioned, Clio, we can pull in matter information, and there's a lot of information that comes in that. All of your, if you have anything, what do they call them? I'm having a brain lapse. The special fields that they have, you also pull that information into Clio as well. You can pull that directly into the template using all that Clio data that you have in your Clio Manage. We have a native integration with Stripe. This allows you to put a paywall on products. So you could actually create a set of questions that output a very basic document that you might want to sell. This is also something that people utilize to get people interested in their firm, especially if you're in estate planning or something like that, where you can offer maybe an 18-year-old power of attorney at a very low cost rate that introduces that family to your firm where they can then utilize that for their college students, but then also maybe say, okay, now that your kid's in college, have you looked at your estate planning? And then we can pull more people in that way. So this is a great tool for you to be able to either sell or market your DIY documents, or to be able to just kind of stream a revenue of people that might be interested in learning more about your firm. The last thing I'm going to cover is DocuSign. We do connect natively with DocuSign, meaning when you finish a workflow, you can actually submit it for signing right there. Not just for signing, you can send it to an attorney for review and edits. It can then create an envelope and give it to the different stages. So you can have multiple recipients on the back of your DocuSign that pushes that document through all the different uses that you need. We do that with dates and initials and signatures as well. Outside of our native integrations, we do connect with a lot of other platforms through Zapier. If you're not sure what Zapier is, there's also another one, Make, as well. We also work with. But Zapier is really well known as a third-party integration tool. And what they do is create webhooks. They do all the heavy lifting in a much easier format so that you can connect all these tools together. They have a really great support team as well that you can also reach out to for any questions you have. But if you have another platform that you're interested in putting information that you gather from them to us, you can use Zapier to do this. Some of our favorite ones are like things like we have, we utilize obviously Clio, but we also work a lot with anybody who has any Box or SharePoint or things that you like to share your templates after or your documents afterwards. We also integrate with Excel spreadsheets or Airtable if you like Airtable. We do have a lot of different information that, you can send both ways here as well. So if you'd like to use Lawmatics and you want to collect some of that information with Lawmatics, send it to Gavel and then gather more information from Gavel with more complex, conditionals, and then take that data and those documents and move it back to Lawmatics. You can do that. There's a lot of ways that you can, utilize us, especially because we are friendly with others. We do have an API that is available for our scale customers that would like to create their own integrations. So if you want to bring this data back to your website or your firm's site, and you have a client portal for your firm on your site, you can use that. A lot of people use this as well as background. You wouldn't even know that Gavel was necessarily a part of something like Hello Divorce, but we are a part of Hello Divorce. It's just more that you don't see it as obviously because they use us through APIs. So there's a lot of things that you can build with this. Kind of sky's the limit when it comes to these integrations. But really knowing where your mile markers are and where you want to connect, it could be as simple or as complex as you need it to be. If you just want to pull in data from Clio and then create documents at the end and download them onto your hard drive and then share them with your clients when they come in, that's just as valuable as somebody who's creating a platform, for profit, and putting a paywall on it and the data is going to somewhere else, etc. The key piece I want to call out here is that the integration is key part of wanting to build a tech stack. And Gavel's just one component of that. We work well with others and we play well with others. So keep that in mind if you are looking at other automation platforms. Any questions about the integration stations, in particular about any integrations that you're interested in learning more about? Cool. You don't need Zapier to integrate with Clio, okay? We do have a native integration with Clio, but it is one way, meaning we can pull information from Clio. I can go ahead and share a little example here as well of that. I do have a Clio demo on my account here. Let me go ahead and share that real quick for you. Okay, so our Clio demo, if I look here, I have two things that are connected to our demo Clio account on a Clio Manage account we have. It's connected here. I can pull in a matter. I can pull in contact cards. So I'm going to pull in a client contact card and opposing counsel contact card. And in this example, I do ask some follow-up questions that aren't asked in Clio. And then I have a document output. I have two different documents that I output based on data that I've gathered. Okay, so if I go back to my dashboard here, and I'm here, I have options of sharing this. I can share this via a link. If it's Clio, it is private, so it has to be an internal use. This isn't something your clients can use. There are privacy issues with that. But if I click run here, because it's on my account, I can select a matter. I see I have my little help text here. I can select a matter, I can select a contact card, and then I can select an opposing counsel. Once I hit continue, I'll get my follow-up information. And then we can just put in, they moved in on that date. I get my review page. And then I click continue and it's going to output my documents, hopefully without any errors. I did not test this morning. So it's just been something that's been living on my demo account here. And so what's nice about this is it's pulling in all the information, including the special fields that you have in Clio. So I can see here, I have this one here where it's showing every possible answer that I have from Clio. So this is a list of 29 pages of data that we actually are getting from Clio. So you're able to pull in so much information. But if I wanted to just output specific things, this will tell me the name, the address, and the information about that person that I pulled from this list of information, if that makes sense. But there's a lot that you can pull in from Clio. However, that information that I have about the house and the home and when they moved in, this information is not currently in Clio. In order to get that information back to Clio, if you want that information back, that would require Zapier. Right now, it's just a one-way integration. Are there any other questions about this on integration? Okay. All right, let's go ahead to the part 3. This is the testing and the reroutes. If you do have other questions, Caitlin's on there as well, but we're gonna just kind of move ahead as we're headed to the last like 15 minutes or so of this presentation. So I wanna make sure that we talk about testing and reroutes. And this is not just within Gavel, but this is within all of your integrations and everything that you set up for your roadmap. So as we've gone through these 3 sessions, the idea is that you had that first roadmap that you were looking at where you're at now and where you ideally wanted to go. Session 2 talked about setting up all the different parts of it so that it runs smoothly. Session has been mostly about how to execute, right? How to actually create those different parts. So create your Clio contact cards and matter cards if you're doing it that route, or your decision vault information, or your other integrations that you'd like to use, creating your Gavel workflows, right? That we need to create in order to utilize the automation in Gavel. But now we're going to talk about testing. And the key part here is that you need to test. You can't test too often before you make it live. And there's a difference between, testing and making things live. Client data is something that you want to protect, obviously. So we want to make sure that we are actually, asking the right questions and getting to the right things and everything's synced before we start putting it live in front of our customers and clients. This means troubleshooting. And it's just about inputting data and trying things out over and over again, and then moving data from place to place. So you also want to share this with other people. Make sure you're getting as much feedback as possible. So here are some best practices. Within Gavel, using dummy data, like I had shown you, is super advantage to like filling out long workflows is this fake filler Chrome extension. They have them for a lot of the other browsers as well. Just go ahead and search for different extensions that you can add that would allow you to put in dummy data. This really just makes it very easy to fill out workflows. But it's not just enough to fill out workflows with dummy data. You got to know where your logic is within a workflow and within your integrations. So you need to think about where are those pivot points, like we talked about, within your integrations and testing that. If I have this much data and I put it here, from if I have a not complete Clio contact card and I push that to Gavel, does it actually still automate the documents I want to automate? Probably not. So what are the best practices we need to think about at Clio to make sure that I can push that information into Gavel that puts out the perfect document that I need? And you're setting standards. So testing that to make sure that the data you're taking from Clio is correctly getting inputted to Gavel, which is correctly getting inputted to the documents, right? Within Gavel, you need to think about all the different logic. I need to think about, I tested it for the EU, but did I test it for California? No, I should go back and redo that and make sure the California one comes out exactly how I want it to come out. So it's really important to think about all those different instances and testing for any outlier situations. Obviously, if we're talking about huge workflows with a lot of complicated logic, that's easier said than done. But the best practice is just to run it in a lot of different versions in a lot of different ways. One of the easiest ways to do that is sharing with others. We get stuck in our own little blinders of seeing things the same way we see them every time when we're testing, especially. It's really important to get feedback. Reach out, send your workflows to other people, have them fill it out, especially your team members. If you are building this out to help your legal secretary be able to get more clients quickly because you are seeing a boom of people coming to your firm, then you want to make sure that that person is actually using this and testing this. And they're going to find things that you didn't even think of. And they're going to find those little roadblocks, language changes, typos that you might have missed, but also just where I'm like, this is a little clunky. It feels to me like it was easier to do it the old way, and you're going to hear that a lot. And that's just going to be fear of change to some degree, but also because it's a new system. Is there a way to make it easier? That's a way to think and plan ahead, but also to kind of be like, oh, I see what she's saying or they're saying. Let me see what we can do to help fix that. The idea here is when you're building a legal tech stack like this is to make things faster and easier in the long run. It's a little bit of lift at the beginning to get a lot of saved time and energy later. And that's where we want to promote the benefits of this. So that's my ideas for the best practices of troubleshooting and then maintaining the data and keep moving it, and then keep testing it. If you need to make changes along the way, that is completely normal. Laws change, things change, perhaps the influx of people change, and you need a more robust client management system. It is really good to have a rapport with the different platforms that you're working with. I know here at Gavel, we take it upon ourselves to really kind of get to know each of our customers, because your projects are important to us. We want to see you succeed. It's really important to us to see you guys succeed. So something like that changes and you decide, okay, this is no longer cost effective for our firm, or we are getting too big for this smaller platform. We want to move to a different platform, but we still want to use Gavel. That's an important relationship that we could then build with you. If you're using a different platform, you should be able to reach out to them and communicate with them, and then ask them the specific questions you need. If you get into any trouble at all, you can always reach out to Gavel here. I mean, even if you're not a Gavel subscriber, we want to help you guys be able to get to a point where you are utilizing tech platforms within your firms, because we do believe that is the way to be able to help as many people get access to the legal field as possible. And so we are here to help you in whatever way we can within picking our brains in the way we can to help you. All right, I'm going to go ahead and go then to any questions we have about this part or any questions we have throughout here. And feel free to unmute if you'd like and go ahead and ask your question, or Caitlin, if you see anything, you can let me know. We currently don't have HIPAA standards on our platform. We are AWS. We do fall under their umbrella for their tenants and their SOC 2 privacy, but we do not have HIPAA. Does anybody else have any other questions? Feel free to unmute if you have questions that you'd like to ask. If not, I can move forward and we can talk about what's next. So we've had three wonderful visits together with these sessions. Again, if you haven't seen the other two, highly recommend you go back and watch them. There are also worksheets involved with the other two. This one is more about just a hands-on demo and learning what to do now that you've created your roadmap. We will have another event coming up. It is tomorrow. We are having Dorna Moyney, who is our CEO of Gavel, and Brittany Hernandez, head of legal innovation, will be co-presenting for the Lady Justice Initiative's Lex 2X Exec program, which is a mouthful. I had to practice that one a couple times. You can register on that link. It's not clickable here, but you will be receiving this screen share. I will also add this link if I can. Oh, oh no. This is always the end, right? There we go. Let me see if, okay. There we go. All right, at that link here, I'm not sure if I can grab it. Let me see if I can grab it for you and then share that in our chat. Dorna is going to be talking about walking through her journey, going from lawyer to legal tech founder. And then Brittany's going to lead everyone through a hands-on automation workshop. So it's going to be more of you get to build yourself and like learn more about especially supercharging AI within your practices. So we definitely have our head of with the AI systems that are coming through. We have Blueprint on our site that allows you to use AI to create your workflows. And then we are looking forward towards other AI possibilities coming down the pipeline soon. We do not have plans currently for HIPAA. It is a quite robust, I'm sure you know, privacy concern. We are, I think Caitlin's just answered all of that for you there, so she'll probably be able to cover that for you there. So, uh, help answer that. All right, that's all I have for you guys here. If you have any other questions, please do not hesitate. You can reach me at help@gavel.io or Tricia, Tricia @gavel.io. I'm also on LinkedIn. Feel free to look for me. We can connect there. Just super excited to hopefully meet with everybody in the future, and we can talk more about Gavel or any of your automation needs.